Just ahead on CTV News, the White House puts a pause on all federal grants and loans. Plus, the county council pushes for permanent rent stabilization for seniors. And Simon Buggs takes us into the high school track and field championship. Those stories and more on CTV News starting now.
Good evening. This is CTV News for January 28th. I'm Mariah Jalad. Thanks for joining us. The Prince George's County Council met today to discuss a host of issues, one of those being a bill to permanently stabilize rent for senior housing facilities. Currently, a rent stabilization bill exists only for buildings built before the year 2000. But County Council Chair Jolene Ivey says this expansion will help an additional 10,000 seniors.
This bill would only affect senior buildings, and the problem is the earlier rent stabilization bill only affected senior buildings built before 2000, and that was fine for most buildings, but for senior buildings we thought there should be even more recent buildings that have been built to make sure that more renters who are seniors are covered.
Council members also were introduced to a resolution allowing the sale of alcoholic beverages in grocery stores. The resolution is sponsored by District 2 Councilmember Wanika Fisher and District 6 Councilmember Walla Blagay, and it expands on a bill which currently sits in the State House of Delegates. And Councilmember Fisher spoke with CTV about the importance of passing this resolution.
So when people ask me all the time, I want a Trader Joe's in my community. Why is there a Trader Joe's on 14th and U? The Trader Joe's on 14th and U can sell wine. And when you look at profit margins for supermarkets, they really need sometimes the beer and wine to make it reasonable to come into different communities. Grocery stores, if you look at any of like the bigger shopping centers in our county, whether you see the Wegmans or the Costco as an anchor or a Giant, they're union jobs with benefits, and they end up bringing more retail around those communities. So it's really, really important. And we don't want to just see Whole Foods and Trader Joe's in College Park. We want stores like that throughout the county, and this is one of those tools to help us get there.
That House bill would need to pass through the Maryland General Assembly's Economic Matters Committee, where Committee Chair Delegate C.T. Wilson has already expressed he's not a fan of the bill. And Jolene Ivey has garnered some major support as she has her eyes set on becoming the county's next top leader. Retired U.S. Senator Ben Cardin endorses Ivey for county executive. Cardin says, quote, she takes action and leads the way. Ivey has received backing from dozens of local and state leaders, including high-ranking politicians like Congressman Steny Hoyer and Congressman Kwesi Mfume. And Governor Wes Moore is sharing the love, so to speak. According to the Maryland Department of Legislative Services, the governor's fiscal 2026 budget shifts $144 million in costs from the state to local governments. The biggest factors in those shifts would require the jurisdictions to pay a larger share of public school and community college teachers' retirement costs. The share of cost of property valuations would also increase. And Republicans blame Democrats for making what they call bad financial decisions. Meantime, Attorney General Anthony Brown updates the guidelines of the role of state, county, and local law enforcement when it comes to federal immigration enforcement. The guidelines say officers cannot ask about someone's immigration status during police work unless it's related to a criminal investigation. Local law enforcement cannot share names or addresses with ICE agents without a judicial warrant. Officers also cannot extend detentions to investigate immigration status. And the White House Budget Office has ordered a temporary pause on all grants and loans dispersed by the federal government. According to an internal memo, affected programs include financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. The memo also states that the order should not be construed to affect Social Security, Medicare recipients, and federal assistance provided directly to individuals. Congressman Glenn Ivey calls the pause on grants devastating.
But what this does is it means that research for addressing child cancer, funding for domestic violence and homeless shelters, funding for projects like that, all get cut off. And that makes absolutely no sense. It's really devastating to people in projects across the country. We won't even know the full effect of this for months to come, but there's no doubt that the federal government funds a lot of critical programs and research and the like, and this kind of across the board cut undermines all of that.
And Ivey and his fellow Democrats are calling on President Donald Trump to reverse course. And nearly 60 employees with the Department of Veterans Affairs are on leave after President Donald Trump's executive order dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It's the latest federal agency to cut its employees that focused on DEI. Those employees are now on paid administrative leave. The VA says those employees were making a combined salary of $8 million. The agency also says it's working to cancel DEI-related contracts, which total more than $6 million. A VA spokesperson says the agency is proud to abandon DEI policies, and those funds will be better used to serve veterans. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Mariah Jalad. Still to come, changes are underway in the classroom, and we have updates and what you need to know.
In today's Classroom Close-Up segment, we're diving into today's biggest headlines in education. You don't want to miss it. Stay right there.
You gotta believe without seeing. You gotta keep going, keep breathing. When you face a day, it feels like you're gonna break. You gotta believe without seeing. You gotta keep going, keep breathing. When you face a day that feels like you're gonna break. So lean on the walls that love you. The guardian angels above you, and think about when peace just another color. Ooh, just another color. Just another color.
Welcome back. Here on CTV News, we're diving into today's biggest headlines in education, keeping you informed and ahead of the curve. Michaela?
Welcome to Classroom Close-Up, your go-to source for the top stories shaping Prince George's County and Maryland education. I'm Michaela Newton, bringing you the latest updates on everything from local education news to statewide developments. Today, the Maryland State Board of Education and the Accountability and Implementation Board held a joint meeting. Here's some key takeaways.
Reports of possible budget cuts from the state continue to raise concerns for the public and local advocacy groups.
Children in Maryland deserve the best. We know how history repeats itself and how we often cut education in times of crisis. And that's not this year, that's not the next 5 years, that's not the next 10 years, that's not in our plan as advocates.
Meanwhile, when addressing possible changes to the blueprint as well as key takeaways from the meeting, Isaiah Leggett, the chair for the AIB, had this to say.
Much of what we've seen and heard in the press is related to changes in the blueprint have not materialized to us, and we have not made massive changes at this point in time. Then fourthly, I think that we've made some substantive changes as it relates to pre-K and having a better explanation of the teacher shortages, changes we need to make going forward.
And President Trump's recent executive order to pause federal grants and loans. As of right now, the board says they are unsure of what that means for other education programs. Meanwhile, the Maryland State Department of Education is preparing educators for possible school immigration raids. MSDE sent guidance to local school districts Thursday clarifying that student data is largely confidential under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and state code. Now, if an immigration officer shows up at a school, the guidance says staff should immediately contact their local superintendent and school district attorney while cooperating with authorities.
This policy that sought to ensure that immigrants were welcome within our communities is now overturned, and Trump is using our public spaces, even our sacred places of worship, as places where individuals now fear that they might get deported, that ICE might come in and raid and deport them.
And calling all book lovers, USA Today is launching their Winter Book Challenge. The challenge runs until March 21st, but what's in it for you? Anyone who participates and submits a bingo card will be entered into a $100 gift card giveaway. So visit USA Today's website for more information on how to enter. You must be 18 or over to enter. And PGCPS looks like they had a successful Stuff a Trunk event where hundreds of new books were distributed to teachers to build classroom libraries.
We were so excited just to come and get books to fill our classroom library, and it is a buffet. There are a ton of books. It's extremely hard right now to get students to read any book, so I try and have as many possible for them to take.
And stay with us as we dive into today's biggest headlines in education, keeping you informed and ahead of the curve.
Thanks, Michaela. And Maryland could join a dozen other states in limiting students' cell phone use in the classroom. State Senator Ron Watson is sponsoring the Maryland Phone-Free Schools Act in the General Assembly. The bill would require each county board of education to create a policy that limits the use of phones during the school day. Besides teachers' complaints that phones are a constant classroom distraction, they pose serious concerns for children's mental health.
We have to get back to the days where our students learn to be able to have personal relationships with other folks. If they do that, they'll be better enabled to handle stress. They'll be better able to handle conflict. These are the issues that they don't have when they, stay on the cell phone all day, stay on social media, on a computer all day. And all I'm seeking to do is make sure that in the classroom environment, they are focused 100% on our schools. We are spending $3 billion in the Blueprint for Education. We want to see the results, and anything that impedes that, I'm going to do everything I can to remove it.
And if that bill is enacted, county education boards would have until the 2026-2027 school year to put cell phone bans into place. And we now head to a developing story involving a house fire in College Park. The Prince George's County Fire Department is still on the scene, where they've been fighting and investigating the fire since around 1 p.m. today. The house fire took place at the 9500 block of 49th Place. 3 firefighters have sustained minor injuries while fighting advanced fire conditions upon arrival.
Firefighters went to an aggressive interior attack. Conditions did continue to deteriorate, so we did do an evacuation of the firefighters so we could reset. Our firefighters were able to come out of the building. We did accountability, and then we redeployed firefighters back inside of the building. The cause is under investigation. Right now we're leaning towards a lithium battery for a scooter, but that's still under investigation. So the fire investigators are on the scene now, and they have recovered those parts, and at this point we'll let them make the final determination.
And multiple occupants were in the home when the fire took place. Luckily, they were able to evacuate without injury. And the University of Maryland might be putting a hold on giving out raises. According to reports during a university Senate meeting, President Darrell Pines says that UMD will, quote, probably not be able to offer cost of living and merit raises to its employees. Reports show that the university has been providing these raises for the last 5 fiscal years. This comes as the state's deficit will most likely lead to cuts to public higher education. And Governor Wes Moore's budget proposal could raise the personal income tax rate for the state's wealthiest residents to one of the highest in the region. This, according to a study by the Tax Foundation. For those making $1 million or more, the tax rate could increase to 10.7%, which would be slightly lower than in the district, but nearly 5 percentage points higher than Virginia. For those earning more than $500,000, the rate would go from 5.75% to 6.25%. Some fear the budget plan may prompt some residents to move out of the state. An economist with Towson University says Maryland's high taxes is the main reason Maryland's economy lags in the region. And the 2025 tax season is officially underway, and there's some good news for families. The Comptroller's office is urging parents and workers to claim the child tax and earned income tax credits this season. These refundable credits can lower taxes or increase refunds, putting cash back in your pocket. The child tax credit offers $500 per qualifying child, while the state earned income tax credit could mean an extra $11 for eligible filers.
Unfortunately, we know that over 180,000 Marylanders who were eligible for the state earned income tax credit last year did not claim it. They're leaving money on the table. And in Maryland, the average amount that is provided through the EITC is over $1,000. So we want to make sure that everybody who's eligible for the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit claims it, that they file their return. And using direct file is a really good way to make sure that that happens.
And for any help, visit one of the Comptroller's 11 branch offices or head to marylandtaxes.gov. And don't forget, the deadline to file is April 15th. And still to come on CTV News, the annual polar plunge is right around the corner. After the break, we learn about why law enforcement takes the cold dive and the cause it benefits. Back in a moment.
Us. It's what this country is made of. A helping hand, a shoulder to lean on. Different voices.
Hello.
One sacred bond. But right now, that bond is fraying. Where do we find common ground? How do we get back to us? The why fills the gaps and bridges our divides. Now, more than ever, the why needs your support. Because where there's a why, there's an us. For a better us, support your local why today.
One University of Maryland student is putting his hat in the ring for the College Park City Council special election. Ganon Sprinkle announced Monday that he will be running for the District 3 council seat, which was recently held by Stuart Adams. Sprinkle previously served as the deputy student liaison to the City Council from June 2023 to May of 2024. Sprinkle says he will be ready on day one to deliver results for District 3. The special election will be held on March 11th. And a recent poll has revealed that Marylanders want more investments in transportation infrastructure, just as the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act of 2025 will be presented to the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee tomorrow. The poll taken by the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club showed that Marylanders, Republican and Democrat, rural and urban, agree that a pressing issue for the state is creating safer and more efficient public transit, biking, and walking options. And did you know that 1/3 of U.S. traffic deaths during the Super Bowl involved drunk drivers? To combat this statistic, WRAP, or the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, has announced the inaugural 2025 Super Bowl Sober Ride program. The program will be in operation beginning Sunday, February 9th at 8 p.m. and will operate until 4 a.m. the next morning. During the 8-hour period, area residents can download the Lyft app and enter a Sober Ride code to receive up to $15 off their ride home. Since 1991, WRAP's Sober Ride program has provided more than 93,000 free, safe rides. The 2025 Super Bowl Sober Ride promo code will be posted Sunday at 6 p.m. on SoberRide.com. And 2 local law enforcement officers embrace frigid temperatures and dip themselves into some ice-cold water, all in the name of charity. Corporal Lakeisha Bolden and Deputy Jasmine James from the county's Office of the Sheriff took part in a pre-polar plunge event this afternoon. Bolden and James are set to join other first responders this Friday in the police plunge for the 2025 Polar Bear Plunge at Sandy Point State Park. The money raised in this annual event will go towards supporting Maryland Special Olympics. So far, the department has raised $2,500 out of their $3,200 goal.
My cousin, he suffered from Down syndrome. He passed away a few years ago, and every time I get in, I just have the memory of him, of how hopefully it makes him happy, you know, and just doing something for not just him, but also for other special needs.
I've seen these the Special Olympics that they host here, and it's a really good cause. And just to think like those kids get to really have like a full production put on. So to come out here and just simply, you know, plunge in the water for a few seconds with my amazing colleagues to be able to raise money for that is a good feeling.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how cold that was. To support the department, visit plungemd.com, go to the Police Plunger tab and search PGSO Frozen Stars. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture has issued a new public alert on another food item. The alert is for this 46-ounce bag of breaded chicken breast nuggets sold at Wegmans. The USDA says that the nuggets may be contaminated with extraneous material, specifically bone fragments. Wegmans is accepting product returns for a full refund. And now, Simon Buggs is here with our Tuesday Sports page.
That's right, Michaela. We have some great topics in store for today. Don't go anywhere, y'all. You'll love today's sports page. I've got track and field news, I've got Commanders news, and even some news for you golf fans out there. Stay tuned.
The doctor said I only had a 29% chance to find you. But I knew you were out there. Every night, even when my heart was sad, I wished for you to sign up. I got so sick that I couldn't go to school, but I still made people laugh. But when we matched, it was the best day ever. Dear donor, your blood stem cells saved me from leukemia. Thank you forever and ever and ever. Sincerely, Owen.
Experience the true joy of saving a life at nmdp.org.
Out! Out! Everybody out! Come on!
Good job. Under 2 minutes.
Keep your loved ones safe from home fires. Practice a 2-minute drill until it's part of your routine. And test your smoke alarms monthly.
There's nearly 678,290,000 kids under 5 around the world. But what's so important about being 5? Well, children who live to age 5 are twice as likely to reach adulthood. That's why vaccines matter so much. For 40 years, Rotary and partners have delivered vaccines globally. Like here and even here, in your neighborhood and around the world, Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
What's going on, sports fans? I have a packed sports page for you today. Let's get right to it. Now, it was a packed house over at the Prince George's County Sports and Learning Complex yesterday afternoon as the County Track and Field Championships took place. Schools from all over the area came to show off their athleticism to try and win a medal for their school. I caught up with Bowie High School head track and field coach Dana Samuel, and she told me how excited she was to be there.
This is our Super Bowl. We've been training, most coaches have been training probably, doing some fall conditioning. August, September, everybody gets geared up for this day. We expect the best performances, the best experience, and our kids so far, they're showing out already. They're showing out for us.
And now it's time for some track and field highlights. In this first race, girls from Flowers, Largo, Siouxland, and Northwestern all lined up to try and take home first place in the 55-meter hurdle final. The gun went off soon after, and the girls began their race. About halfway through, it looked like Flowers' Jalen Blackwell and Largo's Layla Fersner were going to be the two to try and take home the first place crown. And it was neck and neck the rest of the way, but Blackwell was able to beat Fersner by 4/100th of a second to win the race and go back to Springdale with a first place medal. Next up, we have the boys 55-meter hurdle final. Siouxland's Trinity Hill Caleb got off to a great start, taking the lead early. And the gap between him and the rest of the hurlers got bigger and bigger, and he won first place with a time of 7.83 seconds. Now right here, we have one of the most anticipated races of the day, the girls 55-meter final. Laurel's Khadija Atara got off to a strong start, but as the race went on, Eleanor Roosevelt's Jasmine Davis began to creep up on her to try and steal first place. But it wasn't enough as Atara kept her lead and winning the race. And finally, the boys took the track for their 55-meter final. This race was close, guys, as Flowers' James Harrison or Friendly's Dante Long seemed like the two runners who were going to come in first place. And it went down to the wire for these two as Harrison won it by just 1/100th of a second, recording a time of 6.37 seconds to Long's 6.38 to take home the championship. Congratulations to all the winners of the race. Meanwhile, the Washington Commanders season came to a close this past Sunday as they were defeated by the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. With free agency and the draft approaching, this team could look very different in 2025. And head coach Dan Quinn spoke yesterday about what his message is to the team as they head into the offseason.
Savor this time, and they've created something together as teammates that is special, and not every locker room is the same year to year, and knowing that next year's team will be different than this year's team. But what they have created, I didn't want them to miss that and lose that, because having great team chemistry is a part of a championship run. And they know exactly what that looks like, and I discussed that today. There'll be some time in between now and when our off-season program begins, and making sure they're checking up on one another and calling in and pushing and doing all the things that great teammates do.
Definitely excited to see what Adam Peters and company do to improve the team. Meantime, the UMD women's golf spring season is right around the corner, and Maryland will be in Mexico for the Collegiate Invitational at the Guadalajara Country Club, taking on Virginia for their match. I caught up with head coach Kelly Hovland earlier today, and she told me how much her and her team are looking forward to the matchup.
Well, we're excited to get some great weather. It's probably the only college tournament this time of year that you're guaranteed to have good weather, and so we're excited to get down there, hit off grass, play golf in some sunshine. It's a course we're very familiar with, against some great competition to get our season started. So we're looking forward to get down there and really use some of that experience from the fall and some competitiveness and mental toughness to kind of really get going the season on the right foot.
The Lady Terps will take the course on Friday. And finally, the Washington Wizards fell to the Dallas Mavericks last night, 130 to 108. They will face off next against the Toronto Raptors tomorrow at Capital One Arena at 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Simon.
No problem.
And in this Commanders offseason, what positions are you looking for them to improve on?
Okay, well, two things, Mariah. On the offensive side of the ball, I want us to get another receiver to complement Terry McLaurin. Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is an option. On the defensive side of the ball, I really want us to shore up that secondary and try to get another cornerback, whether it be free agency or the draft. Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, those are two guys that I think can help us this season. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be a fun offseason for sure. I can't wait to see what Adam Peters does.
Yeah, we'll look out for him.
Absolutely.
Now let's get a look at our 3-day weather forecast. Tonight it'll be partly cloudy. Tomorrow it's going to be nice but windy. We'll reach a high of 56 with wind gusts up to 44 miles per hour. Thursday it'll be sunny with a high of 45 with some rain Thursday night. And Friday we'll have a high of 55 and get those umbrellas out. We have a 90% chance of rain to kick off the weekend. And for our community calendar, the Department of Permitting, Inspections and Enforcement and the Department of Housing and Community Development will be hosting 3 listening sessions focusing on the permanent rent stabilization law. The first 2 sessions will be virtual with a final session in person. To register to attend or submit questions and comments, residents must complete the listening session registration form. That form can be found at princegeorgescountymd.gov. And that wraps up CTV News for now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Good night, everybody.